this thing working? Give me some sound over here.
Yeah.
The Out of Bounds Show is powered by the award-winning golf courses at Dancing Rabbit Golf Club in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
We have Mike Detillier on the Modelo guest line. Mike D., Saints LSU Insider, WWL, Radio TV New Orleans. You're listening to the Out of Bounds Show. This segment is brought to you by Sound and Communications. For any audio-visual equipment, systems, businesses, church, sports facilities, well, it's Sound and Communications, SoundcomAV.com. SoundcomAV.com. We welcome Mike into the show. Mike, we got a lot to get to today, and I'm not going to start with LSU or the Saints because I just want to get your thoughts on Ole Miss and Bama. Huge game. Ole Miss has looked really good. Bama's looked good. It's in Tuscaloosa, two guys that are more than familiar with each other. And Lane's, I think, got the best quarterback in America, but Bama's got the best talent. So, what are you looking at? What are you looking for in this matchup this weekend, Mike?
I'm looking for a high-scoring football game. I think either defense is going to stop one another. Now, you might slow them down, but you're not going to stop it. And so I expect a high-scoring football game. And, listen, I think Ole Miss has gotten better than a fighting chance here, to be honest with you. It's just something there with Alabama defensively, and you saw it against Florida, that something's not right defensively with them. And they're not as good as they were a year ago. Early on, you can see that. They're not as good. Young is a terrific quarterback, and he's going to put a lot of points up on the board. But I don't think they run the football as well as they did a year ago. They don't have Najee. And their receiving core has got a lot of young talent, but it's not what you had a year ago. So, man, listen, I think Ole Miss has got better than a fighting shot here. And match the type of quarterback that has given Nick Saban's defense problems in the past. A guy that can move around the pocket a little bit, buy a little time, and you can't cover forever. And so, man, they're going to put up some points here. And Ole Miss's defense is better than it was a year ago. Like Deuce tell, man, listen, when you're 119th, there's only one place to go. You got to get better. So it's going to be an interesting football game. And can Ole Miss match it point for point for point?
Yeah, I can't wait, Mike. So no assistant coach has beat Saban. And the question is this going to be – will it happen, this weekend? The line's at 14.5, Mike. Now, it started at 17.5. But it's kind of holding at 14.5 right now. What do you think there?
Yeah, well, that means a lot of money was bet on Ole Miss. That's the only reason why that comes down 3 points. I think initially, because I grew up with a guy who's now the chief sports odds maker at the Win. And he initially had told me, and this was early last week, he had put it at 15.5. And I think they got a little bit of action, and it went to 17, but it goes right back down to 14.5. So I think initially his thought on it was at 15.5, I think was probably correct. And they just kind of, they want Ole Miss money. For them, it doesn't matter if they win or they lose. They want to put it where they don't lose a ton of money, so to speak. That's how lines are spent. So they got some of that Ole Miss money come in. They got a lot of it. To move a line 3 points, that's a lot.
It is.
That's just not a little. That's a lot of money. going on Ole Miss. And I think 14.5, now you're going to start to get Alabama money with people saying, listen, I don't think Ole Miss can hang with them. I think, man, if it stays at 14.5, I think late you'll see a lot of Ole Miss money, because that's how most of the top gamblers bet anyway. They wait a little late in the game to gamble, to see what it kind of settles in at. And I think you're going to have a lot of people betting on Ole Miss late.
Okay. Mike
at
D.
14.5.
Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. He joins us on the Modelo guest line. You're listening Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone. Mike, I was at the LSU MSU game over the weekend. Interesting. Neither team impressed me. Both pretty ordinary. I guess what was your takeaway on the game, and then we'll dive into what could happen this weekend with Auburn and an ex-LSU QB may be a factor in the game, and TJ Finley.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if TJ wasn't the starter. I think based off of what you saw late in the game, I don't know how you can roll Bo Nix out. I just don't see how you can put Nix back as the starter now. You got to give TJ a shot and see what happens. I've seen TJ play since he was in junior high school. Big, tall, scrapping young man. He got a rifle, and he can hum it. What I saw last week from TJ was better mobility than what I've seen in the past from him. He was a guy, once you got him, he wasn't getting away. And yet you saw him sort of maneuver a little bit, and on that touchdown pass, he not only got away once, he got away twice. And you stand up next to him, he is a huge young man. He's a big, big young man. So he's always had the gun. He's streaky as a passer. It's been something that's part of his MO from his high school days, and even last year when he played, he's a bit streaky as a passer. But that's not a pass he can't throw, because he's got the rifle to do it. What I saw last week was a little better mobility in the pocket and movement skills from him than I've seen in the past, to be honest. And so that's a plus for TJ. And so I would be shocked if he wasn't the starter against LSU. LSU's defense, I thought, was a well-mapped defense for 3 quarters. Really was. I thought what Durante came up with really sort of put Rodgers in a spot where, okay, I'm going to see how patient you're going to be. Because I think he sort of wants to get a little itchy throwing the football deeper downfield. And his bad throws were when, I think he just got frustrated with it. The bad part about that game plan is, if you don't have a running game to keep your defense off the field, they get wore out. And that's what happened to LSU in the fourth quarter. They could not run the football and eat up time, and their defense got put back on the field and back on the field. And when you're on the field that many plays, you're going to get wore out, plain and simple. So I thought the game plan, because you look at that score at the end of the third quarter, LSU had that game in the pockets, and it was really well mapped out. The problem became your offense and your offensive line, which we've talked about, forever, could not get a running game going. And that's how you could have eaten up the clock in that situation. And it would have been a much easier game for them. Max, again, I thought played solid, throwing the football downfield. And when you don't have a running game, you better make it happen. LSU's receivers were the difference in that game with the big plays. And you had a couple of breakdowns in the secondary for Mississippi State that certainly set it up. But nothing to write home to mama about for LSU or Bot State, to be honest with you. And it shouldn't have been that close.
Yeah. I'm just surprised that LSU's not better, Mike, that they're not, overall as a team on offense and defense. I thought Mississippi State shot themselves in the foot, moved the ball all day between the 20s. I don't know. This is interesting to see. Of course, Auburn's not. It's fascinating to me that Auburn, LSU, and A&M are all ordinary this year, the way they recruit. But none of them are special, and none of them really. Their units jump out at you. Maybe A&M's D, but I don't know how that's going to look. Do you think LSU takes care of business this weekend, or you expect a close, low-scoring game between Auburn and LSU?
I don't think LSU is going to get in a lot of high-scoring games. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game between them and Auburn, to be honest with you. It just, again, when you can't run the football, you're so limited. And, yeah, you can make a couple of big plays in the passing game, but you just limited. And that offensive line's not going to get that much better. It can get a little better. It's not going to get that much better. And I think if Ed told the truth about it, the one area they have not hit on really good in recruiting has been the offensive line. That's the one spot. You see talent along the defensive line, in the secondary, linebacker, receivers. They got a lot of highly recruited running backs. None of them have really, popped out. But, man, listen, when you get met in the backfield, that's difficult. But offensive line play has been lousy across the board for them. Really, they have not played well. And that continues from a year ago. And that's why I think that they're on a big push to try to get freshmen, recruits. And they're going to have to go JUCO or get grad transfers to come in because that unit's going to get wiped out completely. All of them basically are seniors. So it's been a surprise because of the fact Ed has always preached toughness and physicality, and you don't see any of that from their offensive line. None of it. None. And you haven't found a back that really sort of clicks yet. And we'll see what happens with John Emery. Does he get his decision this week from the NCAA? John's a real talented back, played his high school football right up the road from me at Destrehan. Do they get him back? And we shall see. But, again, I don't think it's the running backs so much as the offensive line play. When you're getting pushed back the way they getting pushed back, that's about physicality. And Auburn game has always been strange. Last year was a blowout, really a big-time blowout. But these other games they've played against Auburn have really been strange, Bo. I mean, all of them have had weird twist to the game. A few years back, Auburn had that game in hand at halftime. All of a sudden, they wilter in this heat of Tiger Stadium, and DJ Chalk changes the game with a punt return. 2019, and maybe the toughest game LSU played all year long was against Auburn. I mean, that was, you talk about a fist fight, that one was one of them. And every player on that LSU team, even Joe Burrow mentioned to me, that was the toughest game they played all year. Man, Auburn's defense really got at it. And one of the funny lines from that game was Damian Lewis was from Mississippi, comes to LSU, 2-year starter, really good player, early running back of the Seattle Seahawks. He was going up against Derek Brown. And, man, he comes off the field, and I'm not that far away on the sidelines, and I can hear them. They screaming at him because Derek made a couple plays, just collapsed the inside pocket. And I heard it just, they were after him, and Coach O was, hey, you going to block somebody? He said, man, he called out the number. He says, like 2 of them. And Coach O was like, at least block 1 of them. I don't care if there's 2 of them. Block 1 of them. And it was a funny line. And Damian just sat on it, and he was trying to explain it to then offensive line coach James Craig. Hey, man, he's beating me. It's like they got twins out there trying to block him. And you could distinctly hear him telling them, man, because he was a man out on that field that day. And he come to play. Derek come to play that day. And it was a wild game. And LSU Auburn has always had some crazy finishes to it. And so you know what? History sort of tells you that this game with two teams that really don't have a distinct identity, that'll happen again. And now, who knows TJ Finley more than what the LSU coaching staff does?
True.
They recruited him. They saw him at Ponchatoula all those years, had him on that football team. And I know it was a tough decision for TJ to leave. He was one of the first in that class to verbally commit, never wavered. He always told me that was my dream school to go to LSU. He got the nod over Max. It just didn't work out. He had difficulties, but most freshmen would have,
sure,
in that spot. And he could read the writing on the wall that Max was going to be the contender along with Miles Brennan. And then all of a sudden, he leaves, and then Miles has a freak accident, and Max becomes the guy. And just sometimes the man upstairs puts you in the right place, right time. And I think it's his time at Auburn. I really think it's his time. I think you're going to see a little bit of a roller coaster with him, but once he settles down, Bo, he is going to be one heck of a player.
Mike Detillier on the Modelo guest line. Mike, let's go to the Saints. That was a big win over the New England Patriots. They get Mac Jones to throw 3 picks. New England couldn't run the football. What did you make of the Saints game plan and what Sean and the Saints were able to do to the Patriots this past weekend?
If I put him on the lie detector machine and he answered no to this, if I said, man, beating Belichick it wasn't a big thing, and he would have, it's like any other team, any other coach, we out for the win. Man, he'd have blew the circuits out. Come on, he wanted to beat Belichick in New England. Because they have tried to model their franchise after the Patriots. Sean has made that comment numerous times to us, that when he took over in 2006, that already, the Patriots had established a pretty good run, and that they were the gold standard, and that's what he wanted to do here in New Orleans. It was a defensive win for the Saints, where their defense just dominated that football game. Got great pressure on Mac. They stopped the run. They got a little bit of help from New England receivers. Man, Jonnu Smith, he's stealing money. I mean, 3 times he drops a pass, and one of them, he pops it right into the hands of Malcolm Jenkins for a touchdown. Pick 6. The same guy who signed a 4-year, $50 million contract, $50 million guaranteed. Man, he stole money Sunday. So, no, I ain't kidding you on that. It was a great effort by the Saints in that the game plan worked. They had a running game. You rushed for over 140 yards, for Sean. and they rushed over 40 times. And that stat is big. He don't like to hear it, but it's true about them running the football over 30 times in a game. And they got that going. The passing game was erratic. They don't have an identity in the passing game or on offense. But their defense was really good. Special teams played well, with the exception of Rosas missing the 2 field goals. And he told us last night he's not looking for another kicker, which is a little surprising. Now, maybe he thinks Will Lutz will be back very quickly. But he told us last night on the coach's show he's not bringing in kickers.
Interesting. So, okay.
Yeah. Because I thought, with Aldrich, I thought, I made the comment during the show last night, I'm glad he's renting and not buying, because I know he ain't going to be here much longer. And when Sean came on, he said, no. He said, I told him, listen, I think you can kick in this league, and I got confidence in you, and this and that. Now, does he have confidence in him thinking that Will Lutz is going to be back either this week or next? and that could be the case. But for the Saints to get better, if you're going to play that type game, you need a field goal kicker you can rely on, and Will Lutz becomes a big part of it. So, man, it was a defensive effort. Great. Man, DeMario Davis, just fantastic.
Good grief.
I thought it was maybe Marshawn Lattimore's best game as a Saint. And he really played well. Cam Jordan, I thought, kind of under the radar, had a really strong game in run support and also putting pressure on the quarterback. And, all around, man, their defense really played well. And they put a lot of heat on Mac. All you needed to tell me was how many times Mac Jones threw the football. If you'd have told me that ahead of the game, I'd have said the Saints win. Because you can't throw the football 50 times and win in this league. That's not how you do it. And you can't put that on the back of a rookie quarterback either.
Yeah. All right, we'll leave it there. Saints have.
But this isn't how they've won in the past. Bro, they've come out with and figured out a new way to win.
Sean's so good.
And that's with defense
Mike.
And a running game.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, they went for 142 on the ground and made it happen in other areas like you just described. All right, Mike Detillier, LSU NFL Saints insider, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. Saints have the Giants this weekend, and so that's always good medicine. As they're an absolute and total train wreck. Mike D, thank you, buddy. Have a great week, man.
Thank you, Bo. Appreciate it.
Oh, Mike D on the Out of Bounds Show, brought to you by Sound and Communications. They provide leading-edge audio-visual for churches, businesses, and sports facilities. That's right. They provide leading-edge audio-visual for churches, businesses, and sports facilities. Sound and Communications, soundcomav.com. Obviously, the AV stands for audio-visual. Soundcomav.com. So, Blake, who do you have more confidence in right now? The New York Giants or the Detroit Lions?
Oh, goodness.
Detroit, because they lost on a 66-yard field goal to a decent team?
Yeah, and they look like they're playing hard and playing together, and their job this season was probably to look good losing games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
New York feels like they should be back in the winning conversation. Detroit's more in the, let's just lose a bunch of games and have a top 5 pick and move forward.
The Fighting Kneecap Biters.
Dude, they had the Ravens beat, man.
Yeah, they did.
Came back on the 49ers in week 1, made it
Devastating.
close. Yeah.
66-yard field goal to lose.
NFL record, 66-yarder.
NFL record. There you go. All right. And then Dak and the Cowboys play the Carolina Panthers at noon on Sunday in Arlington. All right. Cool. Dak looked great last night. Defense looked great. Zeke looked great. When was the last time we said that? Well, the offensive line gave Dak time. And they opened up some holes for Zeke. So maybe the MVP last night was the Dallas Cowboys O-line. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Show is brought to you by Sound and